Hello and welcome to Channel's Book Club. My name is Olakunle Kasuman. It's great to be back on the show again. This week we are going into a book that is dark. Oh yes, dark. The title is Dark Hearts. And it's reality. We live in some people will say we live in a dark world. I mean, they always say that in the context of so much crimes in the world that we live in. It's our reality and we've got to deal with it. Now, this book is fascinating because the gentleman who is a senior advocate of Nigeria who has written this book, we'll get to introduce him very soon, has taken real-life legal stories and turned them into fictional forms that are readable for you and I. Absolutely enjoyed reading Dark Hearts, even though a lot, if not all of the stories there are gripping and scary and almost worrying, but essential book to read if you live in this world. Now, let's get to meet with Chief Layi Babatunde, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, and then dive into his fascinating book titled Dark Hearts.
Layi Babatunde is a senior advocate of Nigeria with over 3 decades of experience in law and law publishing. He is the founder and principal counsel of Layi Babatunde & Co., a full-service law firm. Layi Babatunde is the editor-in-chief judgments of the Supreme Courts of Nigeria and has published several books. His book, Dark Hearts, is a collection of dripping short stories based on actual court cases that cuts across murder, rape, armed robbery, and other dastardly acts.
Chief Layi Babatunde, nice to have you on Channel's Book Club.
Thank you.
I like to call you Chief. you know, in the West, we are so proud of, they are so proud of the Sir title, Sir. You know, ours is Chief now. Chief is like this.
I stick with it, senior advocate. hopefully I will have the courage to add the chief.
We'll be proud of our chiefs, Chief. Chief, it's been 40 years in the legal profession.
38 years, actually.
It's almost 40.
Almost 40 years.
Wow, that's incredible.
Almost 40 years.
I like to ask people, when I meet engineers, I like to get into their world and ask, what is it like being an engineer? What's it like being a pilot? What's it like being a doctor? What is it like being a lawyer?
It's a calling.
It's a calling.
It's a calling. If you once you are called to the bar and you have a clear perspective of what you want to do and what you hope to achieve, it becomes normal. It becomes it becomes part of you.
Is it a calling, or rather, it is supposed to be a calling? What I mean is, I'm sure there are people in the legal profession who are not supposed to be there.
I'm talking about attitude to it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about attitude to it. Once it's something that you imbibe, it becomes part of you. It doesn't look like a burden that you have to do it. It becomes enjoyable.
I'm trying to fill your shoes.
Yeah, because the whole idea is to help to solve people's problems and make society better.
Basically. That's it.
Basically, and then you contribute to your own quota.
Now, the book you've written here is interesting. Dark Hearts, a collection of shocking short stories based on actual court cases. So, in about 40 years of your legal profession, you have seen some cases that shocked you. Cases that normal human beings like myself probably have. If we hear those stories, we wonder, do people actually do this kind of things? Do people actually commit these kinds of crimes?
Well, the book is about human nature. If you like, an aspect of human nature. And if you look at the preface to the book, you will see a reference to Jeremiah 17:9 about the heart of man being desperately wicked.
The human heart
yes.
is the most deceitful of all things,
yes.
and desperately wicked. who really knows how bad it
it
is?
is.
Nobody
Nobody
knows.
knows how
Yes,
bad
because
it
some people, you don't expect some things and then you just hear.
Yeah. So, in the course of reading and having to apply the law, some of these cases you get to read them, and the level of shock that you get about the extent to which the human being can do to perpetrate certain level of conduct, where some will say evil conduct. But it occurred to me that some of them may look like fiction, really. If you have not really come across them, if you were to tell a story to somebody that this actually happened, he probably would say it's exaggerated. I mean, is this possible? But coming from decided cases, I felt that, all right, well, if these things are true as it is, and there are occurrences that have even passed through the lower courts up to the Supreme Court, then perhaps there should be a way to take this place to the marketplace.
Take this story, take these
these
events.
decisions,
Yes.
yes. Because if they remain in the law reports, it's we, the lawyers and the
You are the
judges,
only ones that will be able to see them and have access to them and
we should not
understand
just be
them.
talking to ourselves. We should not just be talking to ourselves. Other people should be able to profit from the work, the great work that the court and the lawyers are doing in having to attend. To be honest with you, sometimes in reading these cases, I just shudder to think of what goes on in the mind of the judges and the justices that write the judgment. Because some of them, they are chilling. They are chilling.
So what you've done is to take those real life cases
yes,
and simplify them,
yes,
make them readable
in a story form.
in a story form,
In a story form.
and put them here. So this is a collection of some of those
Yes,
stories.
especially those judgments that I believe people can learn from. Some of them, they relate to things that most of us get involved with virtually on a daily basis without a sense of feeling that there is any danger lurking in the corner. Because going through some of the stories in the book, you will see people who had served as security men or guards to people. One of them
Who then turned against
who happens to
their...
even be a judge, and this guard was even feeding the dogs. So the dogs were used to him. When he came into the compound, of course, they were playful. They didn't bark. And they came to perpetrate evil. You will see the story of an ex-driver who went to arrange the kidnap of the ex-employer's child in the school.
How many of the stories do you have here?
I believe
12.
12
There are 12
yes,
stories you
12
selected here.
12 of them.
I'm sure you're thinking of a second volume sometime.
Oh, sure. But
because there are so many of them.
Oh, sure. But the idea is that, at least for laymen, as we say, or people who are not lawyers, it's good to retain their interest, for them to be able to relate with this. I've avoided using the legal
terms and all that. Yeah, I mean, it's very simple
simplify
to read. It's like fiction. I mean, it's written in fiction form and all that. Now, let's provide teasers with maybe one or two of them without giving up the whole. The one that gave me almost had chills. The brother that killed his brother.
Yeah.
You titled it "Brother Kills Brother."
Yeah, and it's quite worrisome, the extent to which people will go just to make money. And unfortunately, we are in an era today of ritual murder and stuff. People believe that but it's very shocking that you get a brother that will make his own junior brother available for that kind of purpose. And he had to travel from far distance to arrange to get the brother.
Plotted it, executed it. Same father, same mother.
Yes. And that shows that when people become desperate and they want to get rich quick at all costs, nothing is beyond them. Nothing is beyond them.
The brother, this particular brother who was killed was a hunchback. Yeah, and the brother who killed him was trying to help a group who believed that to make money through ritual means, they needed
somebody who has a hunchback.
And so he sacrificed his
And he
brother.
made his own brother available.
Ah, man.
He made his own brother
There's
available.
another one that gave me like, I mean, the one you mentioned now, this employee who kidnapped
The driver.
his boss's child.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And I think one great lesson in that story is for proprietors of school, you know. This driver was able to take the advantage of his relating with the workers, the security men, and all of that in the school.
To take that boy.
So after he had left his employment, he was still free with the staff.
And they didn't know that he had been.
They didn't know.
Left.
They didn't know. And he was able to go to the school. He had free access, even up to the classroom.
Took the boy.
And he went close to the break time because he's already familiar with all the system in the school.
And the painful thing is, he murdered that boy.
Unfortunately.
He didn't just take ransom.
Unfortunately.
Oh.
Unfortunately. And that he was able to take the child out of the school without questions.
I mean, we can go on and on, but I think we should allow viewers to go and get this book.
I believe so. I believe so. Recently, when I read in the papers of an incident in a medical facility in the South about how criminals went there and did some havoc, one of the stories in the book came to my mind. You can't imagine that people will go to the hospital to do something so unwholesome to nurses that are on duty. It's unbelievable. People that are offering services, care for other sick people.
Yeah.
And then you go into that facility to do such terrible things to nurses
I think you have one of the stories here about a nurse that was raped.
Yes.
In a hospital.
Yes. Very shocking. Because one would have thought that you have some concern and compassion for people who are doing such duties that take so much toll on their lives and their families. And yet people can manage to do such a thing to such people.
One of the stories you used here, one of the cases you turned into a story here, you didn't use the actual names.
Yes.
But I could deduce is the story of the great legendary musician, Ayla.
I think that was
Omowura, the legendary Yoruba musician, who was murdered by his own band manager, former band manager, right?
Yeah.
Touching story.
Yeah. Perhaps I should plead guilty in picking that story for for the fact that Ayla, may his soul rest in peace. I've always appreciated his level of intelligence. And if you had the opportunity of going to school, I believe that you would have been perhaps a professor of literature. You know, the way he had a way with words.
Yeah, it was a genius.
To weave them together to achieve a desired end.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that his life ended the way it ended.
Tragic.
But I think the lesson for us is that sometimes a little patience helps. Even in the face of very serious provocation. These are part of the lessons I believe people can
drew out of the
learn,
tragic story. I mean, if you didn't know the story before, and you were reading and somebody was reading your book, you would think it's just something that happened, you know. But immediately I was reading, so these are Supreme Court cases.
They are all Supreme Court cases, and you know, interestingly, which is part of what puzzles the mind. You will see this criminal conduct, even in religious organizations. You will see stories having to do with religious organizations and the kind of crime that people perpetrate. And you wonder really what the nature of man is.
Deep.
Because
Deep.
You can do this in the school where you have children. You can do this in the hospital. You can do this in the religious facilities and organizations. You can do this to family.
With all these experiences, all these things you have seen, and even writing this book, how do you see people when you engage people, are you cautious? Are you suspicious? Are you are you wondering whether who is this guy? How do you see people?
No, you see, we can't live our lives in fear. Never. We can. Otherwise, we give up and allow this set of people to take charge of our lives. By the way, all these bad guys, so to say, the law, they met their match in the law.
They were all
All
cops.
of them, they made their match in the law. But having regards to your question, I think the idea is just not to take things for granted. But you don't have to live your life in fear. It's just to be a bit cautious of your environment. Because security is everybody's business.
Not to be too trusting, yet not to be too suspicious. Somewhere in between.
Then we should not be too lax. For instance, one of the stories there, you will see a mother and a daughter that were just waiting outside, and they were at the gate and knocking severally. In fact, they were hooting the horn of their car, hoping that somebody will come and open the door for them. But the people inside were busy doing some other things, and they never paid attention. And while they were waiting there, they were robbed. But we all can relate with this all the time. You get to the house, people are busy watching television, watching films, gisting, as we say.
While crime is happening.
And meanwhile, somebody is waiting at the gate. But these are things to just remind us of our responsibilities.
To be cautious.
To be cautious.
Security conscious.
But not to be afraid.
But not to be afraid.
But not to be afraid.
When I read this, I was like, who are you? Who is this guy? You know, that kind of thing.
But
So
not to be
I
afraid.
I think you are right. It's finding that balance. Armed gang kills Reverend and pours acid on daughter. That's chapter 11.
Yeah, it's very sad. That's why I said for people to have that audacity to go to the reverend's house to commit armed robbery in a church premises, and then you have the nerve to pour acid on some of these things. Really, like I said, some of them you just if you are not actually reading them in judgments of the court, you probably, if you are told, if it's a work of fiction generally, you say, no, how can somebody be that daring? But these are true life events from judgments of the court.
Wow, interesting. We can't, unfortunately, we don't have time. Ex-gate man robs judge, mother and daughter robbed, robbers and lovers. That's interesting.
And then you see that it cuts across the society. And it doesn't matter whom you are. That is one thing.
It doesn't matter.
Whether you are a judge, you are a justice, you are a priest.
Anybody can be a victim.
Anybody can be a victim.
Because those who commit these crimes, they don't really, they don't have no respect for.
Sometimes we have the tendency to think that it can be us. Because we think, because of our status, who would dare do so. But from this book, you will see that it doesn't matter who you are.
Who you are.
It doesn't matter who you are.
Chief Layi Babatunde, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, thank you very much. Thanks for joining us on Channels Book Club.
And thanks for having me.
Great.
It's always a pleasure.
Great having you.
It's always
here.
a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Interesting that was. So many things happen in our world today. You just got to be alert and alive. Otherwise, not too pleasant things tend to happen when we are careless. I think that is the thrust of Dark Heart. And when you get to read it, much more than he has explained it, you get to see that, the world can be very complicated at times. And human beings indeed have dark hearts. Well, up next is a reading. Let's enjoy this.
Hi, I'm Toyin Okuunuga. I'm a project officer for a government organisation, but most importantly, I'm an author of my memoir called Hush to Roar. And today I'll be reading to you a chapter from my book, which is my life of love, childhood trauma, but most importantly, I'd like to say my recovery, my healing journey, which is poignant in this. So listen up, guys, as I read to you chapter 19 called My Life, My Dance. Having come through my childhood experiences, I know we have it in us to pull through adverse situations. Showing gratitude and rewriting our script allows us to give life all we've got. I learned to increase in wisdom and recognize that bad things, unfortunately, do happen because life promised us just that, life. Our scripts are written once we are born, and our brains appear to be wired nicely. But if they get drastically stripped apart, we rescript our lives in a way that makes it bearable to cope with life's demands. I certainly did that. As children and young adults, we rescript our lives and sometimes dissociate ourselves from the reality of our lives. It is impossible to walk around with so much pain for so long. As an adult, I have chosen to live full out and no longer allow my past to have a hold on me. It was clear that living an inauthentic life doesn't align with my character. As a result, I would be in constant cognitive dissonance, knowing that my behavior was not one of authenticity. Still, shame did make me behave inauthentically. I had to resolve and restore this cognitive dissonance. If I didn't, it would continue to manifest itself as stress, regret, shame, embarrassment, or feelings of negative self-worth. The effect would be that I'd continuously frustrate all those around me. When we face adverse childhood experiences and emotional neglect, they make us crave love externally. We tend to live or dance in other people's worlds to be accepted. We eventually become resentful if love doesn't get reciprocated. It was certainly the case for me. I wanted to be liked, to be loved, but I never for once associated this need with my childhood. I don't think we often do. There is a lot of internalization that is not seen by many. And some people might say, I turned out okay. I firmly believe that, in addition to my coming to terms with everything, the environment that I grew up in Nigeria, didn't leave room for me to even think about how I felt. In a lot of other cases, internalizing all we endured as a child and teenager leads to severe mental health conditions. I exited my body through dissociation. It enabled me to cope better. Everyone has one thing or the other that they've gone through. So you internalize everything, then externalize it in ways you are not even aware of. We simply blame the driver that undercuts us for our rage, or we blame our partner for the way they have behaved towards us, and so on. But deep down, we are the ones that have allowed ourselves to react to those situations that way. Mental illness is a massive part of problems in our society today, and most stems from our childhood and teenage experiences. Mental ill health is the single largest cause of disability in the UK, contributing up to 22.8% of the total burden, compared to 15.9% for cancer and 16.2% for cardiovascular disease. The total economic costs of mental illness in England have been estimated at £105.2 billion each year. These costs include direct cost of services, lost productivity at work, and reduced quality of life. Several factors contribute to mental illnesses, and it is often complicated to know what makes up the percentages in the totality of mental diseases. Childhood experiences, no doubt, would be a large contributing factor to this cost.